You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
Welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast. Your boy Pat Lane, as always, with my guy Matt St. Jean. And this episode, as always, is brought to you by by FanDuel, which is the official sports wagering partner of CLNS Media. We're killing it today. I look like the Patriots out here, man. It's good to wear a Patriots podcast because I'm playing like the Patriots right now. Let's try that again. FanDuel, the official sports wagering partner of CLNS Media, is sponsoring this episode. Go to FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up today. And, you know, you can win some money because we're losing on the football field. We're playing like crap out there. We're playing like crap in here, but maybe you can win some money. You know?
That's all we can do at this point, you know? Just
right.
Find ways to get something out of this thing.
That is correct. And listen, you know, I mean, the way our prop bets are going, you're probably not going to win money if you're going with us on the prop bets. Although you've done a little bit better than me. But yes, the prop bets have not been great, but that's okay. So, and your dad's mentioning great hat. It is a great hat. Papa Bear Spice Company. I got some Papa Bear Spice along with this sweet hat. And so I'm excited. I used it a little bit on some stuff that already had some salsa and stuff on it. I could taste it a little bit, but I really couldn't get the full flavor of it. I was just excited to use it more so than anything else. So I just kind of threw it on. So I'm excited to actually use it like for real when I make like a burger or some meat or whatever. So I'm excited to do that for sure. So, but shout out to your dad, little Papa Bear Spice Company. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, papabearspice.com. Go get yourself some. I've been having it for years in his chili now, so I can promise that it's very good.
I love it. It's good stuff. So all right, let's get into the Patriots. And listen, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, we could start in 100 different places. I guess the place we have to start is Bill Belichick. Ben Volen came out today and said that, you know, based on who he's talked to, there's a possibility that Bill Belichick, if they lose to the Colts, could get fired after the game in Germany. Mike Reese went out of his way today. I think you put it really well. I think when you said off air, you said, you know, he went out of his way to not say that something could happen, but hint at the fact that something could happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird. I understand that I get that Robert Kraft is wants to win. I understand that. But what does firing Bill Belichick in the middle of the season do for your team? I don't know how that makes you better in the future to fire, you know, a first ballot Hall of Fame coach, a guy that, again, you could argue is the greatest coach of all time. What good does it do you to fire that guy in the middle of the season? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me.
There's only two possible explanations, I think. And one is that things are not good between Kraft and Belichick personally.
Yep.
And that Kraft would want some sort of petty revenge on something, which I don't think is the case. I mean, it's a working relationship, and I have to imagine things aren't great between the two of them right now, but I'd also imagine it's a shared frustration. They're both unhappy with how things are going. Neither of them thought it was going to go this way. So I don't think it's that. The only justification I can think of for why you'd fire Bill in the middle of the season is if you think Gerard Mayo is the next guy and you want to give him a test run for it right now in the season to see how he handles it.
Yeah.
I still don't think that's worth it. Bill is the GOAT, the best coach in the franchise's history without a doubt. And not single-handedly, but a huge part of why the Crafts have as much money as they do right now and why they were able to renovate the stadium and do all that stuff. And even with things not going as expected, I think he has earned the respect of seeing this out through the end of a season and doing everything in the offseason like a respectable franchise here. And that's what I expect to happen. like Mike Reese, the way he put it was basically like, hey, I'm going over there and I'm preparing in case something happens, because there's been a pattern of teams going abroad to play games when they aren't good, and then they play poorly, they lose, and the coach gets fired, and there's a new coach when they all come home. But I thought Mike Reese was making more of a comment about how that's a pattern and things aren't good in New England. He's not. If he actually thought Bill was going to get fired, he would have said something along the lines of, I'm hearing that this could happen, not putting it the way he was putting it. So I don't think this is actually going to happen for a multitude of reasons.
Right. Well, and Fast Magician just pointed out, too, that Tom Curran did call Bill a lame duck, right? Implying that this is his final year. He won't be back for next year. Certainly makes sense. I mean, look, from what we've seen this year, I don't know why at this point you bring Bill Belichick back next year. It just seems like whether he's lost to the locker room, whatever the case, whatever the situation is that's going on, you can see what's happening with the team. You're looking at the team saying, yeah, whatever we've been doing just isn't working. And so, it's time to maybe move on. It's time to say goodbye to Bill and move on to something else. And again, this happens. Right, this happens. And one of the biggest things, and we've talked about this, but one of the biggest things about Belichick is that he was an innovator. He saw things moving in one way, and he would often zig when other people zagged. Right, and a lot of times when he zigged, he hit it right. But he tried to zig when others zagged. Right, he started that in 2019, really, but certainly in 2020, where he said, "Oh, you're loading up to get fast. We're going to get big and run you over." That's what we're going to do. We're going to get big and strong and physical and run you over. And we're going to overpower you on defense, and we're going to run you over on offense. And it failed. It failed miserably, right? And luckily, they were lucky to win 7 games in 2020, I'm sorry. And, then you get to 2021, and you still don't have any speed. Mac Jones plays pretty well. You get to the playoffs, and you get your doors blown off by the Bills, who are a significantly better team than you. And so then you go out and draft a bunch of fast guys in 2022, but your team's speed still isn't where it needs to be, right? And they're approaching a team speed that's closer to what they need. They're still not super fast. But the problem is that the guys that you drafted to be your fast guys, Tyquan Thornton, Pierre Strong, those guys, Cole Strange even, they're gone. Those guys are gone. Tyquan Thornton stinks. Pierre Strong's literally not here anymore.
Marcus Jones is in that group, and
Marcus Jones is hurt, right? So it's one of those things where it hasn't panned out for one reason or another, and whether it's injury in the form of Marcus Jones, or whether it's a draft bust in the form of Tyquan Thornton and Pierre Strong, and so you went this speed route, and it didn't pay off because your evaluations were wrong, and so now you're kind of back to the drawing board, and we've talked about this in multitudes of times, and so hasn't pretty much everyone that covers the NFL and the Patriots. There's just not a lot of talent on the team, and
you can see it all over the tape now, especially with the injuries. We knew this wasn't. Well, I mean, I think we thought the team would be deeper than it was because we thought there'd be development from guys, and it hasn't happened. And because of that, they're incredibly thin, and at certain spots in particular, and now with guys hurt, it's really obvious, and it's just you're in a tough spot now. This is what you have, and I like the way you put it about Bill kind of leaning into a certain direction, zigging and zagging and all that, and they went in a way. And honestly, I don't even think the idea was wrong. I think they just got the wrong players, and that's what happens in the NFL sometimes. That's life in the NFL.
Yep.
So in an ideal world, this would probably look a lot like what the Lions have right now, where you got a beefy offensive line, and Isaiah Wynn's still here, and Cole Strange is there, and you got some maulers that can push people out of the way, and you got a smart quarterback back there who can deliver the ball on time, and you got a speedster and a slot guy who can make things work, and tight ends who can work things with ankles, and a smart defense. And the players just, haven't been as good as anybody expected them to be. And that's the way it goes. So I think it does feel like Bill's kind of a dead man walking at this point, which is, man, I didn't think we'd be here this soon.
No.
That's for sure. But that's the way life goes, and it doesn't take away from him at all. It's just you get to this point. this whole thing is really hard to do, and he's 70-something years old. And all right, let's. I think it's time for something new, evaluation wise, with players.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I talked about the roster being thin, you know which spot on the roster looks a lot thinner right now than it did 3 months ago? That's
Cornerback?
Corner.
Yeah.
Because, man, some of these guys were not as good as we thought they were going to be.
Right.
And not as reliable as we thought. And Christian Gonzalez, I think, is a stud. I'm not worried about him coming back. But after that, Jonathan Jones is good. He's just good. He's going to be a $12 million cap hit next year, something like that. You've got Jack Jones, who is – we'll talk. I'm sure we're going to get into this here.
Mm-hmm.
His third strike now. He got a suspension at the end of last season, and he got the Logan incident, and now here he is. What was it? He was late to a meeting.
Late to curfew. Yeah. And this is a guy who came in with 2 strikes on his count, and he's had 3 strikes here at the Patriots already. And and he hasn't shown he's consistently a good enough player on the field to be worth putting up with the headaches. He's not a bad player, but he's just out there right now. He's fine. He's not bad, but he's not spectacular. He's not special right now. And, I don't know what his future looks like. Marcus Jones is a guy who I thought actually looked very much improved at corner this year from what we saw last year, but can't stay healthy. And he's behind Miles Bryant on the depth chart. Miles Bryant, I know, is a much maligned player, but good at the things that he does. And you look ahead and it's like, all right, can we count on Marcus Jones to be a starter next year? Can we count on Jack Jones to be available next year? Christian Gonzalez is corner 1, but Jonathan Jones, might be a cap casualty. J.C. Jackson technically under contract next year. I don't think anybody expects him to be around with what would be a huge cap hit for him. And Miles Bryant, a free agent. Are we counting on Sean Wade coming back? All of a sudden, things look a little bit more precarious than they did. 100%. Yeah, and I think, having Christian Gonzalez obviously is huge, right? But there are a lot of question marks after him. And I think Marcus Jones is a guy that you feel like, all right, we can put in there somewhere, but can you rely on him to be an every down slot corner? Can you rely on him to be your cornerback 2 and play outside? They had him play outside a good amount his rookie year, and he looked pretty good. But then you go to it's the Bengals. It's not really fair to compare him to T. Higgins, but you put him on a bigger body wide receiver, and he's 5'8". There's just nothing he can do, right? And so good technique, he's there, but he just can't make the play because he's still too small, right? And so, do they take another shot at a guy like Jack Jones and see if they can hit on a corner a little bit later in the draft, right? In the 3rd or 4th round and kind of go from there. So that it is a good question, and it's something that we necessarily didn't think they'd necessarily be worried about. But look, maybe they go to Jack Jones and say, hey, we're going to restructure your contract and you'll have a less of a cap hit. I don't know.
I think he's still on his rookie deal, so I don't even. Well, and it's the other thing here is it's going to be. Oh, I thought you said Jack. Never mind.
No, John Jones. Because if you're worried about the cap hit with John Jones, then you see if you can restructure his deal, give him another year, and now he's your corner, he's your CB2. And so if you have Gonzalez as your cornerback 1, John Jones, Jesus, as your cornerback 2. And then you have, Jack Jones and Marcus Jones and, Miles Bryant kind of all in the mix inside. I think you're just fine. I think you're totally fine.
You can make it work.
You know what I mean? I think you're deep.
Yeah, but I think then you're still relying on internal development. And it's one of those where it's like, I won't, depending on who is calling the shots after this, because that's the other thing. We're kind of basing this on how Bill does things, and it's probably not going to be Bill doing things. So, if somebody else comes in and they don't know these guys, who cares? We don't need to restructure John Jones. You can trade him, or things might be different there. So I think the greater point there is that when you head into the draft and you're looking to pick guys up, especially once you get into day 2 or day 3, don't be surprised if cornerback is on the list of needs, or especially in free agency. When you have a rookie, especially if you got a rookie corner like Gonzalez, if they don't like Jonathan Jones, you have the money to go sign a different corner if you'd like to have somebody next to him, and that'll make life easier. That's makes life easier when you have a guy who can be a stud at a position on a rookie deal, like we presume Christian Gonzalez will be here next year because of how he looked so far this year.
Yeah,
man, it's such a bummer that he's missing so much time.
It really sucks. And again, Marcus Jones is another guy, same injury as Christian Gonzalez, and it's like those two guys could really give a big athletic boost to your secondary, and they're both gone for the season, right? And so, when you even talk about like Christian Barmore and Judon's gone for the majority of the year too, it's just like it sucks. Injuries happen, and that's the way it goes. But it's like, man, that just it's just bad luck on their part. TJ also asked a question about Jack Jones being allowed out of the country. Those gun charges were dropped. Those are no longer an issue for him, so he has no problem leaving the country right now. It's just an issue of, what he has going on with the team.
Yeah, which I think the fact that we know that J.C. Jackson won't travel, the fact that that's been announced tells us that Jack will. That if they were both not traveling, we would have found that out together. So I assume Jack's going to be there on Sunday when they face the Colts.
Yeah.
And just, the J.C. Jackson stuff, man, talk about a fall from grace for him. So good in New England.
I know.
And the comments out of L.A., too, after he left, talking about him not taking the rehab seriously when he got hurt.
Yep.
I think the GM apologizing to the team for even signing him is, I think, what I saw. And it's like, wow, that you don't want people saying that about you. That's
no, you don't.
Big negative. And it was a good move to bring him back in that they had literally no cornerbacks for a short time period there. So you had to put somebody out there, and you got somebody who is a veteran that knows the system for essentially nothing.
Yeah.
But, I think you expected more from him.
I would think so.
From a buy-in perspective. And so Sean Wade, here's your moment.
Yeah. No, and that's Sean Wade, I think, has played okay. Right. And that's a little bit of a good thing for the Patriots. Of course, they traded a fifth round pick for him. After he was drafted in the 6th round by Baltimore, they traded for him before the season, actually, when he was a rookie. So
it was between the preseason and the regular season too.
Yes, it was. Yeah, before cut downs. He played well in the preseason, I thought, for Baltimore.
He was PFF's number 1 corner.
There you go. With that.
I remember that. Yeah. And he played decently. I think when I was talking about the depth before of the team too, I think that the thing that stands out here is when you lose your top corner and your pass rusher, I think we were expecting guys to step up around them who haven't. And Josh Uche is a name that stands out there who has been just kind of there at points in the last few weeks since Judon went out. And Jack, like when we talked about the corner situation, but I think those are two spots where I think we thought the team had more depth than they actually had in the way it's played out. And I think the touchdown that Washington scored, that deep pass or Patriots blitz, it doesn't get home, they go over the top on you. That play right there kind of sums up how it feels for the Patriots. You're one step slow in the secondary because you're expecting the blitz to get home. It doesn't. Coverage can't hold because of that. It's a touchdown, and the flip side is your offense can't generate that look ever or hit it.
Right. So Light Engine is looking at the cap hit. That's 2023. We're looking at next year. So he has him as a base salary of $1.5 million. That was this year. Next year, his base salary is $8 million. With the signing bonus, the same signing bonus, 3.75, and the cap hit of almost $13,000. Dead cap drops to about $7 million, just under $8. So, but nevertheless, it's just, and then he's a free agent in 2025. So look, I'm not really sure what the deal is and what's going to happen. I will say this, and you mentioned the Lions. I just want to kind of jump back to this for a second. We got away from it a bit, but you were saying the Patriots might look a little bit like the Lions had things gone differently, right? You look at the evaluations and the evaluations that came out. Ronnie Perkins, they drafted 96 overall. Ronnie Perkins hasn't sniffed the field yet. I was high on Ronnie Perkins. PFF was super high on Ronnie Perkins. PFF, he was the only edge rusher in the class that had a 90-plus rating against the run and the pass. They loved Ronnie Perkins. They had him going in the 30s, right? They had him at the end of the first round. Patriots take him at 96.
First rounder or something, yeah.
Yeah. Patriots take him at 96. Pick 112 that year. Same year. Pick 112. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, imagine
Is that Amon-Ra?
dropping Amon-Ra St. Brown. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, if you drop Amon-Ra St. Brown into this offense, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, this offense looks completely different. We hit on a wide receiver. Now you're probably not trading up to draft Tyquan Thornton. And so, you know, who knows what ends up happening in 2022? Who knows who you draft or whatever the case may be. But having a legit stud wide receiver like Amon-Ra St. Brown is and has turned into, you know, who the heck knows what's going to happen there. So it looks like we lost Matt for a second. But I just think it's interesting when you look at, you know, the decisions that you try to make and what you're going to do, right? So much of it depends on your scouting and your evaluations. And so, of course, that means it's going to be you know, a situation where you say, okay, well, we have to get this guy up and running, and we have to, you know, we have to hit on this guy, and we have to all of those things are true, right? Like you have to have a good team. But again, having a good team means that you're drafting well, right? The Lions look like the Lions right now because they've hit on a bunch of those draft picks, right? And even the guys they've missed on, like Taylor Decker is a miss, I guess. He's still a good enough player that he can start for them and be pretty good. He's not amazing, but he's pretty good. And so it's like, you know, there's a difference between missing and having it just be a complete disaster and missing and the guy is serviceable but not as good as you thought he was going to be. The Patriots have gotten guys that are not serviceable. They've drafted guys that aren't even, you draft them, it's a miss, but it's like a complete disaster. And so that's really the difference between a good team and a bad team, which is what the Patriots are right now, are a bad team. And the big reason why is because those guys that you've drafted have turned out to suck. Not just be serviceable and not as good as you thought. They just aren't good. And that really is a huge problem. So, and Light Engine asked about Kayshon Boutte. We talked about this a little bit on Sunday. Kayshon Boutte's just not that good. He's just not that good. I don't know if he's as reliable as what they would like. Now, again, at this point, it's almost like, well, I mean, we don't see practice. We don't see what's happening. But, like, can he really be that much worse than the guys they have out there right now? You know, like that's
I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked to see him get the go for Tyquan Thornton because it's clear they weren't happy with Tyquan Thornton, especially Bill O'Brien's
down routes. That's one of the worst. It's one of the worst routes I've ever seen. It's one of the worst routes I've ever seen.
That's bad. It looks like he got stuck. So, yeah,
right.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Boutte. I don't think he's going to be that. I mean, he's got to be an improvement over that. But, you know, it's an incredibly low bar. And going back to what you were saying about the Lions, which I don't know what happened with my internet there. Everything stopped. But we're back for now.
We're back.
Yeah. That Lions draft, too, is really interesting because they go offensive tackle in the first. You get a franchise guy. Defensive lineman with your next two picks. Guys who have developed into players that are big pieces into why that defense, remember, when the Patriots played the Lions last year, October of last year, this is 13 months ago, that defense was dead last in the NFL. It is now a strength for the Lions. It's a good unit.
Yep.
And the way that defensive line has come together, those two guys they picked there, second and third rounds, big parts of it, and Amon-Ra in the fourth. That, I feel like, is not a bad strategy for the Patriots here going into next year, looking at who could be available. And I'm not saying you should wait until the fourth to draft a receiver because we all know the state of this receiving core and, you know, neglecting that position is tough. But especially if it's a new regime, there's nothing wrong with just starting by building in the trenches and just hammering away at those positions. Because if you can get a lot of guys there, those are spots that are very expensive. And you usually need premium athletes there that you can only get at the top of the draft. So you hammer it and you get guys who can be mainstays for you. You can be set at key positions, key foundational positions on both sides for a long time.
Right. Well, and here's the other part of it for me. Mike Onwenu. Now you drafted City So to play tackle for you. You drafted City So to play right tackle. That's what you drafted City So to do. City So looks really good at right guard. He looks really good at right guard. Very comfortable, really good. Mike Onwenu looks really good at right tackle. Maybe you don't love Mike Onwenu at right tackle. Maybe you're like, oh, we love him at guard. He's such a good guard. But City So stepped in and has played really well. Maybe you just re-sign Mike Onwenu to be your right tackle, and you draft a starting left tackle, and you let Trent Brown walk in free agency, and then you go from there.
Yeah, and I think you got 3 pieces on the line in theory that you feel good about there, in Cole Strange, City So, and Mike Onwenu. I'm leaving David Andrews out of this whole discussion because I think
we don't know what's going to happen. I think he's probably going to retire, but we don't know.
That would make sense. And you need a new center, and you don't want to overlook that. That's a spot that is very important.
Yep.
Especially from the communication and leadership perspective. And I wouldn't hate going for a veteran and looking at signing a veteran there. A guy, especially if you're overhauling this team, if you're going to have City So on a rookie deal, Cole Strange on a rookie deal, a rookie left tackle, a veteran center, that could be the way to go there if David Andrews is retiring.
Yeah.
And then if you go with a guy like Joe Alt, the top of the draft, who's a guy I know who's just getting a lot of hype right now. And there's Fashanu too, Olo Fashanu from Penn State,
yeah.
Who's also either of those 2 guys at the top of the draft. I don't hate it. And the other part here, there's two parts here. One, we just saw that offensive tackles don't usually hit free agency. That's not really a spot you're going to, especially guys who can be franchise players, you're not going to find there. And secondly, you don't usually find those guys outside of the first round.
Right.
There's a lot of receivers out there that come from the 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounds. And we just mentioned Amon-Ra. How about the guy who might be the most prized guy in free agency this year, T. Higgins?
Now, he was the first pick of the 2nd round, but still 2nd round pick.
Yeah, you can get really good receivers at the top of the draft too. And I'm not saying don't do that. But there's guys all throughout the draft at the receiver positions. And, there's ways to get receivers, wide receivers and tight ends, both at the top of the draft, the middle of the draft, the end of the draft. It happens. A lot of the analysis that I've kind of seen suggests if you were going to map out when you take these positions, you'd go offensive tackle in the 1st, receiver in the 2nd, tight end in the 3rd. And if they went ahead and did that in this draft, depending on who the available players are, I don't hate that at all. I think you could do a quick fix pretty quickly there. And then you got a good offensive line. You got So and Onwenu. And if the offensive line can get back to being a top 5 unit, that makes a lot of the other things a lot easier.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And I think, too, like TJ was asking about trading up for Caleb, and I just think even if you are sold on Caleb Williams, I just feel like it's not the way for you to win. You have too many holes. Like Carolina moved up to take Bryce Young. All right. And for me personally, I don't like it. I didn't like the trade at the time. I didn't like what they were doing. You got too many holes. There's too many holes in your team to say we have to get this guy. I understand they wanted a quarterback. I get it. And by the way, it looks like they drafted the wrong one. But, who knows? We'll see what happens with Bryce Young down the road. But, it's just I don't like the idea of mortgaging the future to draft a rookie quarterback who then has nothing around him. I mean, they traded away his number 1 wide receiver and their 1st-round pick next year to a team that they're not good. Carolina's not good. They have one good. Their best player is Brian Burns. He plays outside linebacker, and he may not even be back next year. So it's you're in a situation now where your team sucks, and you just mortgage your future for a rookie quarterback who, doesn't look good right now. But how the hell are you supposed to know? He doesn't have an offensive line in front of him, and he has no wide receivers. I mean, for God's sakes, Adam Thielen is his number 1 wide receiver, and I like Adam Thielen. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but the Vikings just let him walk away because they're like, this guy isn't that good anymore. And by the way, he's not that good anymore. He's okay, but he's not that good anymore. And so he's their number 1 wide receiver. That's lunacy. So if I'm the Patriots and I'm building the Patriots, I'm rebuilding the Patriots through the offensive line unless I get to 5 and someone gives me a ridiculous deal to move back, right? If you give me a Dolphins type deal where say you're at 3 and the Dolphins are at 12, obviously it's not going to be the Dolphins, but you're making a deal like the Dolphins made with the Eagles where you move back to 12. You had 3, you move back to 12, and you pick up an extra first-round pick and something else, right? Fine. I'll do that. And then at 12, I'll take either the best offensive lineman available or Keon Coleman or whatever the case may be, right?
Malik Neighbors. That's my guy.
You know what I mean? So like because what you're doing is you're stockpiling picks, right? And now you have the ability to draft guys now. You're still high enough that you could draft a good player, and you can draft guys now and kind of go from there. Remember now, Philly at 12 moved up to 11 and took Devonta Smith, right? So they moved around the board and kind of took, actually, did they move up to 10 and take Devonta Smith? So I think it was a mistake.
Something like that. I don't remember.
It doesn't matter, but the idea is the same, right? That you're drafting these guys that you're moving back and getting a good chunk back, and I think that I'm okay with that. But again, I'm not drafting. If a quarterback falls in my lap, if I'm sitting there at 5 and Drake May falls to 5, and I'm sold on Drake May, by all means draft him. But I'm not giving up more to go up and get him.
Well, and I think it's tough because a lot of this is also in the eye of the beholder. It's going to matter what the Patriots scouts and front office thinks about the quarterbacks, which another thing here, if it's a new regime coming in, then they may not be in a position where they feel comfortable taking a quarterback. When you take a quarterback and you're a GM, that clock starts on your job the second you pull that pick. Yep. And most guys don't want to do that, and if it's not their scouts who are working with the guy. So who the next GM is going to matter a lot there, assuming it is a new GM. And also where they pick in the draft. If I'm the Patriots, I don't think I'd trade up for a quarterback at this point, unless, now obviously the big F here is if they fall in love with one of these quarterbacks and they're convinced that one of these guys is the guy of the future, all right, then that changes the way you look at the situation.
Yep.
But even, CJ Stroud right now, he's lighting it up. He was the second quarterback taken in the draft. So he's not the first guy. He was the second. And he went to a spot where they have a franchise left tackle and a pretty decent offensive line. There's some weak spots there, but, our old buddy Shaq Mason's on that line, holding it down, having a good season. And look at that receiving core. Nico Collins, 3rd-round pick. Tank Dell, 3rd-round pick. Noah Brown, this former 7th-round pick they picked up as a free agent this year. It's not like that's the way that they've been able to make it work. And our receiving core is not that good. Our offensive line's not that good. So I think you need to, I think you're 1 year too early to drop in a quarterback and have him play like Stroud did. I think it would be a better situation than what the Panthers have going on right now. I would hope. But
you would think.
I think I'm not totally against taking a quarterback this year, but you got to be in love with the guy. I don't want to have to trade up for him. And I still think probably the best scenario here for the Patriots is that they are in a top 3 pick in a quarterback slot, and somebody wants him, and you can get a ransom for him.
Yeah, it's funny. I still think Shedeur is the guy that I want here, and Michael Penix has shown me quite a bit too. Who knows? But I just think Shedeur is so interesting. But I don't know if he's going to come out. What a weird situation that whole situation's kind of gone south a little bit in Colorado. You know what I mean? So, but I don't know. I just love the swag he plays with. He's accurate. He's got a live arm. He runs with the ball, but he's not he runs the ball, but he's not a runner. Like, I don't want a runner at quarterback. I want a guy that can run, but I don't want a runner. You know what I mean? And so, I don't know. So we'll see. Look, there's a long way to go until we get to that point. But I think I'm with you at the point that I feel like if you love a guy and you feel like he can be our franchise quarterback, fine, draft him. But you have too many holes to say we need a quarterback right now.
Yeah. If you're drafting a quarterback, this is more similar to like when the Jaguars picked Trevor Lawrence, where the team was just kind of empty, and you're picking the quarterback because he's far and away the best player, and you figure out the rest from there, which has mostly worked out for the Jags. Seems like they're going to be winning that division this year and hosting a playoff game. and they did it last year too. But I don't know if I feel like either of these guys. No, I feel like I can confidently say that neither of these guys is a Trevor Lawrence level of prospect, even though I think they're still good prospects. They're widely considered good prospects, which I will note. Dane Brugler, and shout out if anybody reads his stuff, he's one of the better draft evaluators out there, in my opinion. He's very good at sharing his information and going through his reasoning. He moved up Drake May to his number 1 quarterback. He's got May number 1, Marvin Harrison Jr. number 2, Caleb Williams number 3, which I thought was interesting. And he made an effort to point out that it wasn't because Caleb Williams had done anything wrong. It's that Drake May had done stuff right. So we'll see how that plays out and how the Patriots feel about that. But I think, this is a deep quarterback class too. Right. I think my take on it is you're probably moving on from Mac, just because if it's new leadership, getting him out of the building is probably you need a fresh start for everybody involved. And you see whatever you're able to get back for him. A day 3 pick, probably maybe a day 2 pick. I don't know. Sam Darnold went for a 2nd, a 4th, and a 6th. That was also the Panthers. So that could be why that happened. You trade him for what you can get. Sign a mid-level veteran, Baker Mayfield, Josh Dobbs, Jacoby Brissett, and draft a guy somewhere in the middle of the draft and go from there.
Well, I mean, look at it this way, right? The way I look at it with QBs, look at the guy you played on Sunday. Right? He's not a great player. He's okay. But there's questions in Washington that he might be the guy. Right? He might be the guy. I don't know if he will be or not, but he could be. And as Alejandros is mentioning, the Raiders, they drafted Aiden O'Connell in the 4th round. He looks good enough. Now, they fired the coach. It's a little bit different, but nevertheless, they're throwing out their rookie quarterback to see what he's got. He's looked good when he's come in. So I think that, there's a few different things where you kind of look at it and say okay, let's see what. Now, of course, the big difference is Washington has their offensive line's terrible, and he gets sacked an outrageous amount, right? But they have 2 really good wide receivers, and I would say 1 really good wide receiver and a solid wide receiver. And so, I think the Patriots don't have that, and so, but then again, he's got the arm that the Patriots don't have. So, it's one of those things where you kind of go back and forth, and you're like, hey. What are we going to do? Can we get a guy? Can we get a guy like that? Can we draft a guy like Sam Howell? I don't know if you can or not, but you might be able to.
Well, I think you want somebody in that tier anyway, because you want the team to buy into the fact that you're trying to be competitive when you're establishing a new culture. So you want a guy who's throwing the ball back there that people can rally around. And that the players trust that you're actually trying to win games. Otherwise, you're going to have some culture issues on your hands. And you want a guy back there who's good enough that he gives you a chance to actually evaluate the rest of the talent on the offense. And I think that's all we're looking for here. And I think you're looking for a bridge quarterback, a Sam Howell type, where it's like, all right, we can throw him out there and we can run the offense and see what it looks like. And is he the future? Probably not. Is he going to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback? Probably not, but he's good enough for now until we take another swing at whatever it is we're going to end up doing.
Right. One, and in Howell's case, I think that's, you never know.
Yeah, exactly. And it's you do. I don't know. I think playing in that middle tier for now is probably where you want to be if you're New England, because
for sure
it's again unless they think one of these 2 guys at the top of this draft is it, and you got to go get them. Other than that scenario, I think you're just laying back and I think you build the foundation and try to plug in the quarterback later. And I think, one of the teams you look at for that, look at what the Kansas City Chiefs did. Got Alex Smith there for a little bit. You got really solid teams, and they build up a good team around them. And then you insert Patrick Mahomes. And obviously, just inserting Patrick Mahomes is not really a strategy you can use when you're trying to build a team. If that was a strategy you could copy and paste, every team would do it. But that kind of approach where it's like, all right, we're going to get good enough play at the quarterback position that we're competitive and we can be a good team. And then you try to upgrade it at some point. I'll put out here because I've mentioned the Lions in here with their method. I've mentioned the Chiefs here. And what do both of those teams have in common? They traded for guys who were former number 1 overall picks as veterans to come in.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if this would be a good move for the Patriots. And I don't know what the price tag would be on it. But Kyler Murray might be available this offseason.
Yep.
And he has some real questions about, his leadership abilities that's been put out there and his work ethic. And there's a lot around him, and he's got that big contract. But if he came cheap, he's more talented than pretty much any other option you're going to get. And you might not have to give up as much draft capital for a player of that caliber as you usually would. And the bonuses from the contract are gone, the signing bonuses. So if it doesn't work out, you can move on a lot easier than you'd usually be able to in that situation.
And Arizona, right? And if Arizona gets the number 1 pick, they might be locked in on Caleb Williams, so they may want to move on from him, and so they might eat some of that contract for you, right? So it's just that's some of the things where it's like you can do those things, and now you're like, okay, we're good at quarterback, so now we can work around those things. I don't love Kyler Murray. I think he's made of glass. I don't love him, but
I think there's a lot of questions there,
right? But at the end of the day, he's better than Mac Jones.
Well,
right?
And the Lions didn't get Goff thinking he's going to be the franchise guy, and I don't think he is. They have him for now.
Yeah,
I got to think they're going to try to move on at some point because Goff is a really good quarterback right now. He's playing well, but he has limitations. And the same thing went for Alex Smith with the Chiefs. And both of those guys are different in that they were quarterbacks who got very good in structure and were very good leaders, and that's why. And those are probably the 2 biggest questions around Kyler Murray,
right? Which is not
so great. That's it's not the same thing. But if you're trying to insert talent, it's something you at least have to look at. Somebody mentioned they have Hendon Hooker redshirting. I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I believe in Hendon Hooker there.
I don't either, but you never know. I suppose take a shot and see what happens.
I thought the Lions should have drafted Anthony Richardson. That's what I would have done if you're the Lions, because then you can, what do you call it? You can redshirt him if you want. And I figured, all right, this is the last year you're going to have a pick high enough to go for this, because after this you're going to be winning a lot and you're really going to have to trade up. But we'll see how this works out for them.
Well, they didn't. Did they move back to 12?
They moved around Gibbs the draft.
They drafted Gibbs at 12. I don't think they moved. Hold on.
I don't remember the draft order at this point. That whole night's a blur.
I know. Hold on. Hold, please.
And just to be clear here too, it's not you're looking for a quarterback who can give you better play than what you have right now and a solid foundation to help you evaluate the rest before you move on from him 1 year, 2 year, 3 years down the road.
Right.
That's the goal.
So they had 6. Lions had 6. So they were too far. They were too far back to get Anthony Richardson. All 3 of those quarterbacks were gone already.
But they had 2 firsts, right?
They did. They had 6, and then they had their own first round pick, which I think was like 18. 18.
19,
so,
something like that. Yeah.
It was 18 because they drafted Campbell at 18. They had 6. They moved back from 6 to 12, which is where they took Gibbs. And they picked up. Or they picked up a second and a 5th round pick to move back, and the second round pick is where they drafted Laporta. Because Arizona wanted to draft Paris Campbell. So I think if AR had dropped to 6, they probably would have taken him in that situation. But
weren't there rumors? I could be totally misremembering this, but I thought there were rumors they wanted to trade up to take Gibbs, but I might be very wrong on that. I know they liked Gibbs a lot. I know there were rumors the Pats liked Gibbs. That might be confusing the 2 of those.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, but I don't know. It's an interesting situation.
Gibbs looks good now.
He does.
I don't hate that pick for the Lions.
David Montgomery's coming back. We'll see what happens. I mean, what's so funny about the Lions is that they've done what the Patriots couldn't do, which is draft competent players. And look, do I think they were crazy for drafting Jahmyr Gibbs at 12? I think they were nuts for drafting Jahmyr Gibbs at 12. But he's a serviceable player. I thought they were crazy for drafting Jack Campbell at 18. I loved Jack Campbell. But at 18, I thought it was way too early. But then you get Brian Branch, you get Laporta, you get all those other guys, right? So it's like, So they get guys that can come in and play right away. And who knows if they're going to be phenomenal players, but they're at least serviceable. So, all right, we're way too far in this. We got to take a break. When we come back, though, I want to talk about the last play. Of course, we said this will be a quick show.
Never is.
No, it isn't. So we'll get into a break, and then we're going to come back. We'll talk about we'll touch on the Colts a bit, and I do want to talk about that last throw by Mac Jones. So we'll be right back. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. MA 21 plus and present in Mass. Hope is here. First online real money wager only. $5 pre-game money line wager required. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. GamblingHelpLineMA.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it smart from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. Back. By the way, I just saw someone breaking down the Celtics did lose tonight to Philly. Looks like Joel Embiid got the defensive rebound off their missed shot with just about 4 seconds left and was
stepped out of bounds.
Clearly standing out of bounds. And the ref was just staring right at it, just didn't call it. I mean, he's pretty obviously out of bounds, but nevertheless, Celtics lost 2 straight, and you can't depend on the officiating. I guess Zannis was thrown out today for staring someone down after a dunk. Okay, makes sense.
He had 2 technicals. And the second
that's what. But I mean, like, that was such a foolish technical. So
it is.
It's so stupid. So, anyways, all right. Can we get into this last play? And the reason why I want to get into this last play, I argue with a million people over this. Now, this is second down. The Patriots are at their own 41-yard line.
No, Washington 41.
I'm sorry. Thank you. The Washington 41-yard line. I'm looking at it, telling you the wrong thing. At the Washington 41-yard line, you're out of field goal range right now. You're not in field goal range. However, you might be able to get into field goal range. If you get into field goal range, you tie the game. Remember, they were down by 3. And so I don't really care what the situation is. I know they had 2 more plays after this play. But if you have an open receiver and you get the ball to an open receiver, which is going to happen, you're going to see it right here happen. Juju comes across the middle. Mac Jones hits him in the worst place you can hit a wide receiver, which is right in the hands, and he drops it. And it's just like, the other thing is that Mac Jones is in the pocket. He's in the pocket. Yeah. So where's he going to throw it, right? And Ed's mentioning that everyone else is covered. Watch the play, and we'll see. Everyone else is covered.
No, they are, and it's to the lineup. You got Juju on the left side, Demario Douglas at the bottom of the screen here, then Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki with Ramondre in the backfield, which Tayler Kyles had also mentioned that this was, I think, the only time in the game the Patriots didn't pass off a stunt properly with the offensive line, which is awful timing for the single one time you mess it up. But yeah, here's the play. We'll let it run. So Juju is going to be your target at the top of the screen here. And when you the end zone angle, you can see it a little bit better too, the throwing lane.
Yeah. Well, and that's, here we are right here, right? And let's just see. I mean, okay, they don't pick up the stunt really well. Mac makes an accurate throw right in his hands. And I get it. I understand. But look at Hunter, look at Gesicki completely blanketed.
Yeah. Well, and that's the right spot for it. Right. Juju has to make that catch. That's really all there is to it. And we'll go back to the wide angle here. You can see what they got going on with the other receivers, but nothing happening there. And that's the right play. And
well, you're waiting. I mean, Henry's not open in the flat.
No.
Demario Douglas maybe has a step on his guy, but if you throw that ball, Demario Douglas is getting picked off by the underneath corner. And Mike Gesicki's double team to the top. There's nobody open.
Yeah, and this is a route combination the Patriots use a lot too, which is they'll have the underneath guy kind of sit here with the in-breaker behind him. And the idea is to target this defender in particular, the middle defender, and he has to pick one of these two guys to defend. They throw it all the time. Mac Jones loves this concept. And he reads it perfectly. Gesicki's covered. The linebacker comes on, throw it into the middle, and really bad route from Juju, although he does enough to get open and actually get his hands on the football. And it's a great throw, even though Mac's under pressure. And yeah, it's just it's a bad drop. But the other part of it is that this team is living by throwing into these windows. You see how small and condensed the field is there. The quarterback's under pressure. There's only one guy you can even throw to who's even somewhat open. You're living where the receivers are in a very small area on the field. And this is the issue with it. Guys drop balls. That happens. But when you're in a condensed area, those drops and those deflections turn to picks in ways they don't when you can stretch the field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And look, here's what it comes down to. How many times did Sam Howell extend the play? Right? He extended the play like crazy, right? And got a guy open. That's what Sam Howell can do. Mac Jones can't do that. Now, he can scramble away, but he can't throw on the run.
Nope.
And Sam Howell was able to move out of the pocket and be accurate on the run, which is something that Mac Jones cannot do, which is fine. It's fine.
Mac I'll contest that. Mac is very accurate throwing on the run. He throws it directly to the chest of the defenders every time.
Great point. That's a great point. But look, here's the situation. I know that I get they have no timeouts left. I understand. The fact is that you're down by 3. You're throwing a pass.
Puts you in field goal range.
You're throwing a pass that gets you into field goal range. You're literally trying to get into field goal range. Now, with 0 timeouts left and less than 40 seconds left to go in the game, you're not thinking about scoring a touchdown. I mean, sure, it'd be nice to score a touchdown, but you're not like, we have to score a touchdown on this drive because that's what we're going to do. You're looking at it thinking, we're probably not going to score a touchdown, but we have to get into field goal range. That throw gets you into field goal range. And this argument, here's the other part of this argument, right? The Patriots are not a good offense. They're not a good offense. When a guy gets open and gets into a lane where he can make a fairly simple catch, I understand that's not the easiest catch in the world, but he's a professional wide receiver. I would say 99% of professional wide receivers make that catch fairly easily.
He made a harder catch like 2 plays before on 4th down.
Right. Saved the game on 4th down, made a great catch, and then drops that one. And it's just,
And it's kind of the compounding of issues too, is that you're not in this spot if you get better play earlier in the game. And you're not in this spot if Jalen Reagor catches a ball earlier. You're not in this spot if you have consistent downfield threats. It's everything that comes. They keep getting into these positions where they have to make plays at the end of the game because they don't make them for the first 55 minutes. And
Yep.
For the most part, we've seen that they haven't been able to make them in the last 5 either, except for that Buffalo game, which how the Bills have been playing. I don't know how much stock we're putting in that right now. Bills don't look like a good team. I think the Patriots got them at a bad time too. So, yeah, this offense isn't good at all, and it's everybody. It's the receivers, but it's the quarterback too.
And
no hate to Mac Jones. He's clearly trying as hard as he can out there, but his inability to stretch the field consistently with his arm is noticeable on tape.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons that, it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons why defenses can play New England so aggressively is because he can't push the ball outside the numbers.
Correct.
And that's something we've known since the day we drafted him. And I think the thinking was he'd be good enough at the other stuff that it wouldn't matter, and he isn't. So now it matters.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, it's a great way to put it. And Light Engine did say Juju owned it, which I will say, and we talked about that on Sunday, like the fact that he got up there and said, I dropped it. I lost the game for us, right? Like, that's on me. And he didn't say I lost the game for us, but he took responsibility for doing it, just like Kendrick Bourne did after the Philadelphia game when he dropped that pass on 3rd and 12, right? And so that doesn't excuse it. That doesn't change the outcome.
Yeah. But these are the kinds of, if that happens in a situation where the Patriots are, 7-1 coming into the game and you lose the game because then everybody goes, oh man, like that stinks. All right, you'll get him next time, Juju. Right. The problem is he doesn't have it out there.
Every time.
He genuinely seems like a fantastic teammate and everybody seems to love him, but it's just, it's not there for him anymore.
No, it is not.
You can see it. You can see it in that route too. And maybe he could be fine as a rotational guy at this point. I think the Patriots have a number of receivers who could be fine as rotational guys. Problem is you're relying on all of them to be starting caliber receivers. And with a slim margin of error because of the quarterback and the offensive line and the abilities of the receivers themselves.
Right, and again, it comes back to talent evaluation. And look, we can look at George Pickens in Pittsburgh, and he's struggling. He's having a hard time in Pittsburgh too. And so, sure, we can sit there and say maybe George Pickens wouldn't have been the answer either, but sure as hell looks a lot better than Tyquan Thornton does, right? And so maybe he wouldn't have been the number one receiver on this team. Maybe he wouldn't be the best player and so on and so forth. And maybe that wasn't the right pick. And maybe not drafting him was the right move. But drafting Tyquan Thornton certainly wasn't the right move, right? And so that's, that situation. And Ed says, by the way, the game wasn't lost on that one play. And I agree with you, Ed. Like, the Patriots lost the game in a million different ways, a bunch of different times, right? And again, like you mentioned, Matt, the Jalen Reagor drop. And, you go back, you go down the line,
with Sam Howell.
Right, 3rd and 23, where you just miss them. Both guys miss them. And you're just like, you got to be kidding me. Like,
yeah.
Those are the things that can't happen that have continuously happened with this team. And that's why when you talk about firing Bill Belichick, although I think it's insane and I think you should never even consider that, that's the one place where I sit there and say, well, I don't know. Like, maybe if you're really that fed up with the way they're playing and they're playing undisciplined and not smart and you're jumping off sides on a punt and, it's stuff like that where we're like, what are we doing? And so
and I know there's contention about if they were offsides on the punt. I didn't actually look at that on the tape to see.
It's hard to see. So someone said it, but you're not getting a shot down the line.
Yeah.
Right. I was watching it from behind because that's my angle. He clearly loses balance and leans forward. Clearly. I mean, it's not up for debate. Now, the question is, was he in the neutral zone when he did that? That I don't know. But I do know he lost his balance and leans forward. Well, if the ref thinks he's offsides when he does that, then he's offsides, right? Like, just don't lose your balance because you're anxious to rush. By the way, he's not even rushing. He's not even trying to block the punt. Like, I have no idea what he's doing in that situation. And it's just stupid. And honestly, even if he wasn't offsides, because you're giving him something, right? Because you're showing the guy something that looks weird.
Yeah.
Just by showing him that, all of a sudden, he throws the flag because like, that didn't look right. Whether he's offsides or not, I don't know. Didn't look right.
But you're putting it in the hands of the officials. You just
don't do that. Don't ever do that.
Going back for a second, by the way, you were wondering why people were blaming Mac for the interception at the end there with Juju. Part of that is the broadcast. The announcer blamed it on Mac and then doubled down after the replay, which was strange. If you blame that on Mac on the first viewing, that's fine. It's live time. But with the replays they showed, it went through Juju's hands. And at that point, it's obvious. I also want to note, shout out Murph in the chat here. Love having you. Maybe having Thornton run go routes and skinny posts instead of outs and slants would help. First of all, any post he runs is a skinny post. Second of all,
nailed it.
If you go through his Baylor tape, a lot of what they had him do was goes and skinny posts and what you're saying, and then comebacks and the out routes and things like that off of that. And that's what it looked like he was doing there. And he was pretty good at that at Baylor. He didn't have issues there at Baylor. The route they asked him to run, where he got stuck at the top of the route, was when he didn't have that issue with at Baylor. So I don't know if he got worse. Maybe he's out of practice. Literally, he hasn't been on the practice field. I don't know what's going on there, but that is something that he showed on tape he could do before, and now he can't do.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal. So I don't know what's going to happen. But either way, listen, we didn't even talk about the Colts. The Colts are, and this. So I was talking about this walking out, because my brother-in-law was with us at the game on Sunday. By the way, it's my daughter's first regular season game. She had a blast. She said maybe next time she won't sit next to me, won't sit directly next to me. But she does want to go again. But we're talking about it walking out, and I was saying the Patriots aren't even fun. Like, they're bad, but they're not even fun. Like, the Colts are bad, but they're fun. Like, Gardner Minshew's fun to watch.
Same with Washington. Washington's fun.
Exactly the same thing, and that's what we're saying. Like, Sam Howell's fun to watch. Like,
yeah. The Patriots are boring, and that's this game on Sunday. I don't even know what to expect. It wouldn't surprise me if the Patriots won. It's the Colts. It's Gardner Minshew. They're not that good of a team. I do think they're probably better than the Patriots, though. And
you would think.
I don't know if we want. I don't know if we're playing for draft position at this point. I'm never going to root against the Patriots, but I don't know if I'm going to be upset with a loss on Sunday. I think we're just hoping for an enjoyable game.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll see. And I feel like this podcast, instead of previewing the next week, has now turned into like the future and how to fix the future of the team, because at this point, this season's pretty much a lost season, right? And so it's all kind of about what would we do to fix what's going on. And it's going to be
already.
Yeah, it's going to be a process. It's going to be a process, but we'll see where it goes. That's all I'll say. So, anyways, all right. Let's
9:30 Eastern on Sunday.
That's right, baby. Don't forget.
Get your NFL Network.
Yes, get your NFL Network going. Okay, 9:30 in the morning. Get some breakfast brews maybe going.
Oktoberfest.
So
it's in
funny,
Germany.
I play basketball. Well, I play basketball at 8:30 on Sundays. Usually 8:30 to 10:30. So I didn't play last week. I didn't play the week before. I haven't played in a few weeks. And I'm like, I'm going to go play. But I'm not going to stay till 10:30. But I am going to go play. And then I'm just going to, I guess, show up a little bit late to home. I'll be behind for a little while, but I don't care. The broadcast blows anyways, so I'll just skip through.
You can watch,
in between.
You can watch it on your phone too. NFL Plus.
I can watch it on my phone. That is true. But I'll be playing basketball at the time, not on my phone.
Fair.
So so it's whatever. It just, which is fine. It just is what it is, right? But I think, it's not one of those things for me that I'm like, I have to catch the Patriots. I have to be there when the ball is snapped on the first play. And again, I'm going to watch the game. I'm going to watch every play of the game. But I'm going to be behind for a little while, and I don't really care. It's one of those, that's where the Patriots are right now, to everyone.
Yeah.
And so
it's funny. It's funny too, because I haven't missed like watching a Patriots game like live in its entirety since like 2013.
Yeah.
With one exception in there where I had to miss a game because I had something and I recorded it and intentionally, it's the Cowboys game in 2015. I didn't see anything and I watched it later without spoilers. And like, it's been like a whole ritual. Like, all right, schedule comes out and this is going to be sitting down, and it's not, when you lose Brady and the magic's gone, it's a different feeling.
Yes, it is.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird relationship to have with this team at this point.
Yeah, it's not great. So Ed is asking about if I usually play basketball on Sunday mornings if I haven't been in a month. And here's what happened. This Sunday I had a Patriots game. The Sunday before, the way it works is that, it's stupid. I have to explain this to you. But the way it works is that the gym costs a certain amount of money. And so if we don't have enough guys, the guy cancels the gym for Sunday morning. So the week before, on the 29th, he canceled the gym because we didn't have enough guys to play. Fine, we couldn't play. 22nd, now the Patriots game. Missed that game too. Missed that week too, right? And then the 15th, I played, finally. But the 8th, my sister-in-law got married, so I didn't play that day. So I played like once in the last month and a half, and I'm like, I got to do it. You know what I mean?
Got to get out there.
So, anyways, I know you just mess with me, Ed, but I felt the need to explain myself, anyways, as to why I haven't been. So,
I love it. Yeah. Oh, and Peter in the chat asked if the Pats have the opportunity to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. or a new QB. Who do you think they should take? We'd kind of talked about this earlier, but I'll just say it for the record here. At this point, with everything I know, I'm going Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. But I don't know, man. If you feel like Drake May is the guy, or Caleb Williams, theoretically, if Drake May goes number 1 and Caleb Williams slips a little bit, and you feel like that's the guy, then fine, draft him, right? And I do think I agree with Murph, and we mentioned this earlier. Like, I think you probably draft a tackle.
Yeah,
but I do think that
it'd be tough to draft a tackle if Marvin Harrison is on.
That's the problem. Like, I think 1, 2, 3 is going to be right. I think 1, 2, 3 is going to be some variation of Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Marvin Harrison Jr. And then you kind of go from there. I mean, look at what the Bengals did.
The draft kind of starts at 4, I think, unless somebody's trading up. Yes,
look what the Bengals did. Right. I mean, the Bengals drafted Jamar Chase. Everyone thought they were crazy. Said you should have drafted Penei Sewell. I remember the meme, right, where it was like Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase, and it was like him getting sacked by 4 people and not being able to throw it to him.
Oh yeah,
and so I love that meme. You know what I mean? So, but of course, it worked out for Cincinnati. Now their offensive line wasn't great, and they kind of failed at the end of the year, but they've built it up a little bit more. But when you get a generational talent at wide receiver, you take him. Because he's a generational talent, and those guys are more important. You could make an argument that they're the 3rd most important position on the offense, right? You talk about offensive tackle, quarterback, and wide receiver. So if you have a guy like that, you go get him, and then you figure out your offensive tackle situation after that,
Yeah.
So,
all right. Should we segue?
Let's do it.
I got a segue for us here because TJ Pindar says college football is a good escape when the Patriots are playing bad. We got college football games of the week for you for this Saturday if you're watching for some prospects. And I said games. I got 2 this week.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So the first one, I'm a little bit biased here because I am a Michigan fan, which unfortunately the last couple of weeks has not been a good escape. But with all the insanity around the Michigan program right now.
Hide your phone when you're around that.
Yeah. If you see me videotaping things at a football game, no, you didn't. But Michigan plays at Penn State at noon on Saturday on Fox.
Yep.
And we've talked about Fashanu before, the tackle for Penn State. He's a guy we've recommended to watch before. You're going to want to watch him in this one. The other guy, J.J. McCarthy, quarterback for Michigan, guy who's a first rounder according to some, a second rounder according to others. I think there's some question marks around him as a prospect at this point. This game against Penn State, with Penn State's defense on the road, it's going to be his first real test of the season. I'm intrigued to see how he handles it. I think this is going to be a really good game to watch. Then the other one, and one of the reasons I had to pick 2 is because this one's on ACC Network, so not everybody's going to necessarily get this one. And I can't believe this is on ACC Network. Duke at UNC. Both quarterbacks in this game are going to get drafted this year. Drake May at UNC is, we talked about him here as a guy who some now have as quarterback 1 and the number 1 overall guy in this draft. He's one of the top prospects and a really interesting player. Duke has, a new version of Daniel Jones that just dropped. Riley Leonard is the quarterback there. Another one of these tall, white, mobile quarterbacks. They're just churning them out at Duke, apparently. He's had some really good games this season. He's probably getting drafted this year. He's another prospect to watch. So if you're looking for the quarterbacks or the left tackle at Penn State, that's at 8 p.m. on ACC Network. Duke UNC.
There you go.
Those are the games I'd keep an eye on.
I love it. All right. Well, let's get into then our
props,
our prop bets, and how about this? We both went 1-1 last week. Got a dub, baby. Got a dub. No, well, I mean, technically, I'm the same as I was. You just didn't gain any ground on me. I am now 5-13 for the year, and you are 7-11 for the year. So not much better, but a little bit better. I hit on the Giants Raiders under 37.5, and completely missed on the Miami Dolphins first half winner. I was going off of the time difference, the fact that Miami went there early. and Kansas City went there late. It didn't matter at all. So Kansas City was up 21-0 at the half, and then of course it seemed like they ran out of gas. So it actually could have benefited Miami a little bit more. They just played so bad in the first half that it didn't matter. And then you won the Browns Cardinals under 37.5, and Will Levis under 204.5 was a loss for you, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, side note, I bet the Vikings Falcons under last week, thinking with Taylor Heineke and the Jaren Hall Josh Dobbs duo that was sure to hit. It looked like it was going to, and then they just blew that one out of the water.
Yeah, so, that was wild. That was a crazy.
Glad I didn't take that one for the show. But you want to go with your bets for this week?
Yes, I will. My two bets for this week are two fun ones, I think. Well, no, it's not. One of them is not fun at all. I'm going with the Patriots prop bet this week. And I'm going with the fact that almost all the international games stink. And so I'm going Pats Colts under 43.5. I mean, the Patriots just cannot score over 20 points. And their defense is usually pretty good. And the Colts stink as well. So I think it makes a lot of sense under 43.5. And then I'm buying into the Will Levis hype. I'm buying it.
Oh, baby.
Buying it. Will Levis over 212.5 passing yards is my second one. Bring me all the Will Levis stats.
All right. I also have an under and a quarterback over.
Okay. We'd see. This is great because we don't discuss these before the show, so we always kind of hope that we don't take each other's. So, but
yeah.
What do you got?
I'm going with the under on Lions Chargers. It's 48.5 points. I think both of these defenses are a little bit underrated right now. This is one of the higher lines of the week, and give me that under on it.
I like it.
And it's also two teams where weird things have historically always happened.
Definitely bizarre endings for both teams for sure.
Yes, and then the other one, I always like to throw a Thursday night prop in here.
Yes.
Give me the over on Tyson Bagent rushing yards. The line's at 19.5. Quarterback rushing yards is one of my favorite bets, by the way. Especially, I have bet Mac Jones over on rushing yards more than once this year. And it hits, too, because it's always really low. Like, it's 19.5 yards, and it's low enough that you can get it all at once.
He had 70 rushing yards last week.
Yeah. It's like, all right, like that feels like a safe over to take for this one. And something fun. This Thursday night game is going to be awful. So let's make it. The Bears are breaking out their traffic cone orange helmets again for this one. So they're really leaning into this being an atrocity.
Yeah, it's gonna be real bad. It's gonna be real bad. Someone was saying that
I might just go to like trivia night or something at the bar and skip this game.
Yeah, it's just not so the standalone games this week, right? The standalone games. Thursday night, you have Carolina, Chicago. Sunday morning, you have Colts, Patriots.
Oh, yeah.
Sunday night, you have the Raiders and the Jets. And then Monday night, you have Denver and Buffalo. And Denver stinks. Buffalo looks really hit or miss lately. So, like, even that game where you have a good team in Buffalo could be a dud. And so it's like those four games are brutal.
Well, Denver Buffalo to me is interesting in that Buffalo has looked bad recently, and Denver has had like signs of competency at points lately.
Right. Yeah.
And that does feel like a random kind of game that something weird could happen in. Might not be good. I want to be very clear here. It might not be good,
it's a good
but
point.
It may be close.
It's a great point. That's a great point.
It may end up being entertaining.
Yeah. All right. What do you got for trivia time?
Yeah, we had nobody get it last week. I'm disappointed. I thought somebody was going to get it. Nobody.
What was the question? Let's read the question again for the folks out there.
We're going back to the 2011 game, Patriots down in Washington. Bill O'Brien made headlines for his screaming match with Tom Brady on the sideline after Brady threw an interception in the end zone late in the fourth quarter. which Patriot player sealed the win by ending Washington's drive with an interception in the red zone? The answer was Gerard Mayo.
Gerard Mayo.
A tipped ball on a pass underneath late in that one. Yeah, nobody had it. So we're going with something I think a little bit easier here. I think somebody's going to be able to get this one. And is this our last? Is this going to be our last one before the drawing?
This is going to be our last one. We'll do the drawing next week. Yep. So last chance to get your name in for a prize.
Yeah. So first answer gets this one. We'll end it
also,
off.
Also, don't forget, if you're listening on the podcast, I know the podcast comes out a few days later, but if you're listening in podcast form, comment right on the podcast if you are, or well, maybe not comment. Yeah, I guess you can comment on the podcast. Leave a review and comment on the podcast, or you could also go back to the YouTube and comment on the YouTube after the fact as well if you'd like to. So
yes,
or send us a DM. Shoot us a DM. Me and Matt, my DMs are open, so go from there.
Yeah. All right. This week's question. This is the fourth international game the Patriots have played in the third different country, with previous trips to England and Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
You remember which team the Patriots beat in their first ever international game in 2009?
2009. I remember that game well. Matter of fact, I was playing. How about this? I was playing in a flag football game at when that game was happening. Weird, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly, and I'm pulling up the game log here to double check, Lee Bodden had himself a day in that one. Did he have a pick? No, he didn't. Somebody had a pick in that game, and that I'm getting confused. I was a big Lee Bodden guy that year.
Yeah.
Big fan of his.
Yeah. I guess.
I mean, I was a kid, so.
True. That's a good point. That is a good point. We'll let it slide because you were a kid. But yes, it was a little strange.
Patriots had 3 picks in this game. 1 by Darius Butler, 2 by Brandon Merriweather.
Oh, Darius. You know what's so funny is that we were talking about the group chat. By the way, no, never mind. That's Antonio Bryant. I was thinking Martavis Bryant. Martavis Bryant's back in the league, which is crazy. But nevertheless, what the heck was I just about to say to you? I forget. Oh, in the group chat, we're talking about Darius Butler today. And, about how he made multiple Pro Bowls with Indy, and he turned out to be a pretty good player with Indy. Just for whatever reason, didn't work here. So,
took a bit.
Yeah, it did. So,
yeah.
Anyways, all right, let's get into we can get into that this week in sports history. My goodness, I am losing it. This week in sports history, and then we'll get you guys out of here. Here we go.
And now for something we think you'll really like. This week in sports history.
Oh, you want to go first? Since I went first with my picks, you want to go this week in sports history?
I hope you didn't take this one too. On this day, November 8th, 1966, U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson signs the antitrust immunity to the AFL-NFL merger.
Yep, that's a good one. It's funny, I almost picked that one. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with a different one. I like that one. That's a good one. I went with not a day that was today. I went with Friday, the release day of the podcast in podcast form. November 10th, 1857, in the first American Chess Congress, was won by Paul Morphy. Not Murphy, but Morphy with an O.
Ooh.
He beat Lewis Paulson 6-2 for a tournament record of 14 wins, 3 draws, and 1 loss. How about that?
Wow.
Little chess today. I bet you didn't tune into the Patriots episode today thinking that you'd get some chess history today, but here you are getting some chess history.
I love it.
Love it. Look at this.
Ooh, and Ed.
71 yards to steal the win for Tennessee in 1998. Must have been a 71-yard drive for Steve McNair. Love it.
Steve McNair, yeah, Titans legend. By the way, I had one stat that I meant to bring up earlier and totally forgot to, that I wanted to mention here. I don't know if you had seen this. It's from Arjun Menon on Twitter, who's a great follow. He has all kinds of great stats. Even though he used to work for the Jets, we can look past that here.
Yeah.
He has a metric for the most versatile players in the NFL through 9 weeks based on like where they're lining up. The number 2 safety on the list, Kyle Duggar.
Look at
the
that.
number 5 safety on the list, Jabril Peppers.
Okay.
Number 2 linebacker on the list, Jelani Tavai. And the number 4 corner on the list, Miles Bryant.
Wowza. That's pretty good.
Which is also kind of funny. We Miles Bryant at 4, Trent McDuffie is at 1. That's a guy I liked, and I had previously said that I would rather have Miles Bryant undrafted than Trent McDuffie for a first-round pick. McDuffie's been fantastic this season, though. And then, one spot behind Jelani Tavai, it's your boy Jack Campbell for the Lions, their first-round pick this year.
Talking about it, freaking love that guy, man. So he was so much fun to his college film was so much fun to watch.
Yeah. It's a verified who's who of guys I wanted in New England right behind Tavai. It's Jack Campbell Leo Chenal for the Chiefs. And Zach Bond for the Saints.
Oh my Lord.
I love the idea.
Plays, huh?
I guess. I love the idea of drafting him as like a Kyle Van Noy replacement. I saw him in that role. Kyle Van Noy is still humming for the Ravens this year. Did not see that coming.
Yep. It's great. Played for the Chargers last year and the Ravens this year. So good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Ed is saying that on this day in 98, Steve McNair had a 71-yard run to seal the win for Tennessee.
It's pretty impressive. That is pretty impressive.
Steve
McNair was a beast. He was so good.
Remember when the Patriots beat Steve McNair and Peyton Manning back-to-back in the playoffs when they were co-MVPs?
I do. In fact, I was at both of those games. I remember it well. By the way, people were talking about, just to mention Steve McNair just for a second, people were talking about, they were all up in arms that Tennessee wore the old Oilers uniforms. Everyone was pissed that they wore them. I'm sorry. They were the Tennessee Oilers for the first year they were there. People don't remember that. They were the Tennessee Oilers for the first year that they were there.
Was it 1 or was it 2?
It might have even been 2 years, but they were definitely the Tennessee Oilers when they were there. Steve McNair was drafted by the Tennessee Oilers. He was not drafted by the Tennessee Titans. He was drafted by the Tennessee Oilers. And so, yes, I understand. I get it. You want to keep the legacy in Houston. That's not how it works, man.
Yeah.
That franchise is the Houston Texans. It is the Houston Oilers. That's what they are. So they moved to Tennessee. That's just the way it goes. It's like the Bobcats. The Bobcats are in Charlotte. They're not the Hornets. Like they're not the Hornets. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
they never.
I guess they moved to New Orleans, right, and became the Pelicans, and now Charlotte has a team again. But I don't know.
Yeah, they what do you call it? They never should have changed the colors. That's for sure.
I don't understand.
Well, it's just like, look at what the Titans wear now. It's blue and it's gray, and it's like that could be the Patriots, or that could be the Cowboys, or that could be it's like that's like the default colors for a football team, and you're picking that over like the baby blue and red, which is just iconic.
And not just that, but Murph says it too. Like their name wasn't good enough for them. I mean, wait a second. I get it, but Oilers is a million times better than the Titans. A million. What are we doing? Why did you ever think it was a good idea to change that?
They should just kept. If we can have the Los Angeles Lakers after moving from Minnesota, we can have the Tennessee Oilers. That can.
How about the Utah Jazz? The Utah Jazz, for God's sakes! Come on, So whatever. I just it is what it is.
Murph mentions it's as bad as the Hurricanes using the Whalers sweaters. What I find funny, too, is the Hurricanes always wear their Whalers sweaters now when the Bruins play them.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Just because it's like the team up north. And I believe the Titans are wearing their throwbacks one more time this season against Houston. That's rubbing it in. That's excessive.
Don't you wish you could wear these uniforms? That's just terrible. Oh man, but that's the way it goes.
I'm sure they're going to do great for merch sales, though.
Oh yeah, I want one of those things for sure. So we'll see. By the way, we'll find out when the podcast is released. In between now and when the podcast is released, we'll find out about Pittsburgh. I'm incredibly nervous. Nervous.
That game's going to stay on Thursday.
That game's going to get moved to Sunday because if it does, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go. We'll see what happens, but I think it's going to stay on Thursday. There's been no chatter about it getting moved. I would think if they were going to move it, that there would be some sort of chatter about, the NFL might be thinking about moving. You know what I mean? And maybe not, but that's what I would think. But we'll see. So, but anyways, tomorrow's the day that we will find out. So,
hopefully,
that's the way it goes. So, anyways, that's all we got for you tonight, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate you guys as always. Some familiar faces in the chat, Murph coming through. We appreciate you, and everyone else that came through as well. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Sunday afternoon-ish. I would think probably. I think it's going to be probably right after the game, but maybe halftime of the 1 o'clock games.
Yeah.
We'll see. We got to talk to the other guys and kind of see how it goes. But either way, we'll be back on Sunday.
Schedule this week. At least we can get this out of the way early, and then I can get on to my Sunday errands.
Yep. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, my Sunday errand's going to be sitting in front of the TV and watching Red Zone, but that's okay. So, well, I mean, we'll see what my wife has to say about that, but that's my hopeful. That's what I'm hoping to do on Sunday morning, but that's probably not going to happen, but we'll see. So, anyways, all right, guys, thank you. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you on Sunday.